Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm super excited to be able to show you some new products from Scrappy Tails Crafts. This first stamp set is called Popping Poppies, and I love the way these florals are drawn, and the sentiments are really unique. They say, "Popping by to say hi, you popped into my mind, and you make life pop." This is the stamp set I'm going to use to create a couple of cards for you today. Now, Scrappy Tails Crafts is known for their pop-up cards, and the latest one is a pop-up basket. This is going to be really fun to use to create Valentine's Day cards or Easter cards, or really all year round. This next set is an assortment of hearts. This one will be perfect for Valentine's Day. You get so many different metal dies in this set. But again, hearts you can use all year round, right? And last, I have the outlined tulip metal dies. These cut out the outline as well as the tulips and the stems and leaves. It's just beautiful. I'll have the link to the Scrappy Tails Crafts store so you can check out the full release. They have some really beautiful products. Now let's get into card project number 1. I'm going to be using some Kraft cardstock from Stonehenge. I love this stuff, especially when I'm going to be using my colored pencils. It has a light side and a dark side if you flip it over, and I'm going to be stamping out my images onto the light side of this paper. It has just a very fine tooth to it, so it's just enough to pick up the pigment from your colored pencils and allows you to put down lots of layers. I'm going to stamp out this beautiful heart with the poppies around it. It's a very large image, and it'll take up the full panel of your A2 sized card, but I really love big stamps. So I'm going to take this off of the acetate and center it on my Kraft cardstock. I'm going to use my Mini Misty just because I'll need to stamp it out several times because this is a new stamp and I haven't conditioned it yet. So I'll pick it up with the door of the Mini Misty. And the ink I'm using is called My Favorite Things Extreme Black Ink. And I do have to stamp it out several times and just build up the dark color. I'll show you the first stamping and then I'll skip ahead to the very last and show you this beautiful image. I just love how it stamps out. And now for a bit of coloring. I pulled out my Prismacolor pencils this time. I haven't used these in quite a while. And I'm using a red colored pencil. It's just called Poppy Red. I'm putting down a base layer of red. I do my first petal a little bit different, and then I decide to change my mind and allow more of the Kraft cardstock to show through. So this time I'm just putting down the shadows first. And I come in with a darker red for my deepest shadows, and even a brown color. Usually poppies have a really dark brown center to them. Next, I'm going to come in with a white Prismacolor pencil and go over the highlights where I let the Kraft cardstock show through. And this really helps the flowers and the highlights to pop. The first petal that I colored in completely with red, it just the white pencil kind of dulls it and makes it look more pink. So for this card, I really preferred the petals that I allowed the Kraft cardstock to show through and added the white later. But these poppies are really fun and easy to color in. The artist drew in a lot of shading lines for you. So basically, I'm just adding shadows where all of the lines are. I am going to put a little bit of yellow colored pencil on the inside of my flowers just to make it pop a little more. And then I'll continue on with the other flowers and leaves. I do have all of the colors that I used listed over at my blog if you're interested. On the second poppy, I'm going petal by petal. So I'll add the reds first and then the whites and just kind of blend them together a little bit. I don't want to completely color over the white areas with my red pencil because I do love that pop of white highlight. But as you can see, I'm just following along with the lines on the flowers to know where to put my darkest shading. And then again, I put really dark shading where the petals meet near the center of the flowers. On my second leaf, I bring in a green chartreuse color. It's just a little bit brighter, and I liked the look of that a lot better. So I do go back to my first leaf with this chartreuse pencil and brighten it up, and it just layers up beautifully. So here's the pencil, the really bright green. And then I kind of take away some of the brightness by layering my other green colors over it. And this time I even add a pop of red to the leaf. So once I'm done with all of my flowers, I'm coming in with a French gray pencil. And this is kind of a brownish gray. And I'm going to go around the heart with this pencil. This is going to help the heart pop off the paper and look a little more dimensional. In just a minute, I'll come in with even a darker colored pencil and go around the heart one more time. I just wanted it to pop a little bit more. On the inside, I'm going to use a pink colored pencil around the flowers. I'm not going to color in the heart completely with pink because I like the look of the brown Kraft cardstock. I'm just kind of outlining the flowers and allowing them to pop a little bit more. Just makes them look more like they're glowing. And now I'm coming in with the same poppy red just around the flowers, and then I'll blend that out with the pink again. I'll add a little more to this coloring later. The colored pencils can really dull your lines, so I left the stamp on the door of my Mini Misty, and I'm going to restamp it. I'm going to heat emboss my lines, so I'm using my anti-static powder first, and then some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is a slow-drying ink. It gives you time to pour over the clear embossing powder and then melt that. But I am going to stamp it up a few times, but look at what a difference the second stamping makes on that. Just freshens up the lines, makes it look so sharp. I'll pour over some clear embossing powder. I'll gently tap off the excess, and I'll allow my heat tool to warm up for about a minute before I bring it to the panel. I'm just moving slowly so that I don't warp the paper, but it just gives you some bright, shiny lines on your image. You could totally skip this step if you want and just ink it up with your regular dye ink, and that will really make it pop as well. This is where I come back again with a little more colored pencil just to bring out the color. And then I'll add my darker brown color around the heart. This just helps bring it up off the paper. I love this effect. Then I'm blending out the dark brown with the lighter brown again. I am going to put this panel back in the Mini Misty one more time to stamp out the sentiment. So I didn't know which one to use. They're all so cute, but I decided just to use the sentiment that says, "Popping by to say hi." I put my grid down first so that I can make sure my sentiment is even. Then I can just peel that off. And I'm going to heat emboss this as well so that it matches the lines of the flowers. And I'll stamp it up a few times with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Even with this dark black ink, I do stamp it up several times. I like a really deep dark sentiment. And then I'll grab my type paper. I just use this to catch the embossing powder. And I'll pour over my clear embossing powder again. My heat tool is pretty warm at this point, so I don't have to wait very long to warm it up again. And I'll melt the sentiment very slowly. And here it is all done. I cut down this panel 1/8 of an inch on each side so that the red of my card base can mat this piece. And then I'm just putting this down flat on a piece of red cardstock. I'm going to put some white gems on the interior of this heart. I'm using a mixture of gems from Trinity Stamps, and I'm just pulling out all of the white ones. And I'm just gluing those around my heart. Most of them are going to be on the inside of the heart. This just adds a fun touch of sparkle and dimension to the card. And that's all there is for my first project. And here's a close-up look at that. Oh, I had so much fun coloring in these beautiful poppies. I'm trying to turn it so that you can see the shiny embossed lines. On card number 2, I'm stamping out all of the single poppies and leaves from this stamp set. This is a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock. And I'm using some dye ink for this. This is the My Favorite Things Extreme Black ink again. I have to stamp them out several times, and then I do stamp out more images off camera so that I have enough for my card. I'll pull this out. I let the ink dry for a few minutes just because I did ink it up so many times. To color in these poppies, I'm going to use my Copic markers, and the poppies are going to be orange this time. Again, I'm following along with the lines on the image to tell me where to put the shadows. I'm using a flicking motion to color in these flowers, and I have to turn the paper because I'm better at flicking away from me. So I keep turning the paper, and I apologize for that. Now I have a really soft, creamy orange color that I'm putting down next. And I'm going to leave white highlights on these flowers as well. And then I have a really deep, dark orange that I'm putting down just in the shadows. I'll speed this up a little bit here, just for the sake of time. And I'm just going to color in one flower and one leaf on camera, just so you get the general idea of what I'm doing. And again, I'll have all of the colors of the Copic markers I used listed at my blog. There are coordinating dies available for all of these stamp sets over at Scrappy Tails Crafts, and I'll have all of the links to these products listed below. For the centers for these flowers, I'm going to use a light brown, and then I come in with a white jelly roll pen and just dot around the stamen of these flowers just to add a little bit of brightness to their centers. For the leaves, I'm using 3 different colors of green. My lightest color is YG61, and then I come in with a darker color, the YG63. And then I come in with a G16, which I thought was darker than the YG63, but it was in fact just a little bit lighter. So my darkest color here is the YG63. I fussy cut those images off camera, and my next step is to do a little bit of ink blending. I'm using Crackling Campfire. This is a Distress Oxide ink, and I'm blending over a very cute stencil. This is just a brick wall stencil. I believe I got this from MFT. But I just want an indication of brick wall behind my flowers, so I'm not taking it out all the way to the edges. I'm trying to lighten my touch as I blend the ink out onto the Kraft cardstock. So both my cards today involve a little bit of Kraft cardstock. I love the look of red with Kraft, and of course these oranges. It just pops off the Kraft. It's beautiful. Once I'm done ink blending this panel, I can pull up the stencil and show you what it looks like. It's so much fun. Here is the reveal. And I did cut out this panel with a wonky stitch die. Isn't that cute? I used the Scrappy Tails Slimline Everyday Borders grass die to cut out this grass. I'm not going to use the whole thing. I will end up trimming this down. I'm going to put this panel in my Mini Misty so that I can stamp out the sentiment next. Usually I wait to do the sentiment for my very last thing that I do, but this time I thought before I add all of the dimension I'm going to add to this card, I'll stamp out the sentiment first. So the sentiment is going to say, "You make life pop." And I'll ink this up with more MFT dye ink. I'm also going to use one of the dies from the Basket Pop-Up card die, and this looks like a trellis. Isn't that cute? So I cut out a few of these with some white cardstock. And I'm going to put this in front of my brick wall. I'll glue these down flat with just a little bit of liquid adhesive. And they meet together perfectly. So you can build a trellis along a slimline card if you wanted to. But I just love the look of that trellis in front of the bricks. All of the poppies I'm going to pop up with foam squares. So I'll peel off the release paper and I'll start with my first one down at the bottom. I'm using the flower with the stem attached to it first. The second one I cut down a little bit so that I could tuck it behind my first flower. And then I'm also popping up the leaves with foam squares. Some I do glue down flat. And here is my third poppy. I cut out these poppies, leaving a white edge around them. And I think this helps bring out the white in the trellis and eventually the white of the card base. This panel is a little bit smaller than my A2 sized card base. But I'm just tucking more leaves around my flowers just to make it look really full and pretty. I do end up cutting most of these down just so I can fit them behind the flowers. I shortened my grass die cut just a little bit, and now I'm going to adhere this under the stem of my first poppy. I put some foam squares behind this as well. Now for a touch of sparkle, I'm going to add my Spectrum Noir clear glitter pen over the flowers. This is kind of hard to see on camera, but it just leaves a subtle touch of glitter on these flowers. I'll use some more liquid adhesive to attach this panel onto my white top folding card base. And you can see a little bit of white showing through. Again, this just helps the white of the trellis and the white around the flowers pop. And here is a close-up look at the card. The new release from Scrappy Tails is just so much fun. Again, I'll leave all of the links listed below. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful crafty day. Bye!